I cannot wait to see the Restream chat ability. It allows us to pull all of our chats in from one place,
Oh yeah, it's
Wow.
pretty amazing.
which is so cool.
It's
Wow.
awesome.
That
Is
is very
that
cool.
a new Zoom thing or?
It is basically the thing that we use to stream all at once to YouTube and Facebook and
Oh,
wherever
oh,
else we're
oh,
streaming today. So how
Oh,
do our
that's
videos look?
awesome.
Oh
oh.
yeah.
Yes.
Oh yeah. Yeah, Restream is pretty cool. So how do our videos look, Mr. Kyle?
How are we doing today,
Right.
Janine?
Hey, hey. Woo.
Okay, Janine.
Yes. Yes, sir.
Wait, just a second. I need to click a button and then.
Mhm.
Kyle, can you see me okay? Am I centered?
Yep, Stephanie, you are good to go. You have that nice San Francisco Bay Bridge and your background perfectly
My
centered.
bridge. I love my bridge.
That's the background of my email. I agree.
Although
I love it too.
I'm
Cool.
in hot Sacramento. I don't know we're 100 and
Ugh.
bazillions today.
I heard
Oof.
it's really
What'd you
hot
say
out there.
100? What do the other numbers really
Yikes.
matter?
I was just gonna say
100
anything
and
above
bazillion.
100 is way too
Pretty much
much.
done.
You and Ryan are in the hot zone.
Yeah, Ryan, you're in Arizona. What are you? What are you guys today?
115 today.
Woohoo!
No.
100 and
Wow.
bazillion. 100 and
Oh,
bazillion.
I can't even. I just can't even. I mean,
Okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
hello, everyone. I'm Janine Stanley. I am the Director of Communications here at Aira, and today we have a very special program for everyone. We have a show that we are calling A Year in Review, and we are going to do a little looking back and a lot of looking forward. And I would like to welcome our panel today. We have Mr. Ryan Bishop, who is pulling all the levers and monitoring the chats and everything. Hey, Ryan.
Hey everyone, hope everyone's having a good day. I'm looking forward to this event today. It's 2021.
Tell me about
We
it.
thought it would never come, right?
I actually got into a car without a mask today. It was kind of
Mm.
scary, but yeah.
Feels different.
You know,
We-
that's just it though, right? I mean,
I know.
no masks. I mean,
Well, some places no masks.
not in this city, I'll tell you.
Aha. Well, we also have with us today my regular host of Afternoon at the Museum at this time, typically, Miss Stephanie Watts. Hey, Stephanie.
Hi, Janine. Hi, everyone. So glad to be here with you all today, coming from hot Sacramento, where it's 100 bazillion.
Ugh.
Mm-mm.
And joining us once again, we met her going to Mars, and now we're going to meet her on Earth. Miss Dana Lambert. Hello, Dina. How are you?
Good afternoon. Glad to be here. And also my co-attendee is Caleb. He may be popping in and out of here.
He will be the Zoom bomber today. And Caleb has
welcome.
just turned 2 last month, so that's so exciting. And finally, last but not least, Agent Kyle. Hey, Kyle.
Hello, hello. How are we doing today,
Hey.
everybody? What a glorious day. Today is the
Yeah.
first federally observed Juneteenth.
Ah,
How
Yeah.
amazing is that?
And that incredible
amazing.
because, and it's that piece of it's happening today because, of course, tomorrow, the official day, is a Saturday. But today it's being observed, and we're going to talk a little bit about that and a little bit about a lot of things. We've been undertaking an effort here at Ira throughout the past year, and it's always kind of been part of our corporate culture, but we realized we wanted to step it up a little. After all of the events last year, we really wanted to delve into some things, and we have, to start out with, our CEO, Mr. Troy Attilio. So, Ryan, we want to get him in here.
Hello, everyone. What an incredible week with the passage of Juneteenth as a federal holiday. This event gives us all even more cause to reflect and consider the past, but perhaps more impactful, consider the future. Think of the origins of Juneteenth and what it meant at the time, and just how far we still have to go. Consider the lynchings, Jim Crow, separate but not equal, creation of ghettos, unequal opportunity, police violence. I could go on. Think about how last year, and even continuing now, we were or currently are witness to the tip of the iceberg in the form of police violence, as just one example. So yes, we still have a lot of work to do as a society. Yet Juneteenth is a celebration and a recognition of an important event, and one that we are all incorporating here at Aira. Not just as our newest company holiday, but as you'll hear in the next hour, what justice, equality means for a service like Aira. Juneteenth is also that cause for optimism. I think for me, and hopefully for many, Juneteenth is evidence that activism can make change and can shine light on injustice. My personal hope is that we as individuals now, and even more so, continue to operate more consciously and challenge our own beliefs as it relates to inequality. And then think about Aira's culture. Culture is something you can't dictate in an organization. Culture really is, the reflection of the people, and it's the combined values that an organization like Aira holds, and therefore, Aira's culture is designed by the employees and agents who work tirelessly and passionately to deliver the service. Excuse me. As a company founded on the mission to provide independence, we have attracted individuals who care deeply about equality. Race, sexual orientation, and of course, what some may call a disability should never factor into one's ability to pursue their life streams. I mean, it's that simple. And I think everyone here at Aira holds that value. Yet, some individuals here at Aira have experienced or continue to experience the ugliness and are harmed by prejudice and injustice. So we not only share it from a common belief, but I know many, unfortunately, are in that category that is, sometimes affected by that ugliness. Either way, as a result of our culture, it is in our soul to align with and support other missions, such as Black Lives Matters, to celebrate Juneteenth, and to continue to focus on how we can materially improve the lives of all, with focus on our community of people who are blind. So my hope and the passion of everyone here at Aira is to help in our small way to create a future that is guided by caring people who dream of a better world for all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Troy. It's very, very powerful message there from our CEO, and we appreciate his support. As over the past year, a small group of employees at Aira have been involved in an effort to increase our outreach and make sure that everyone feels comfortable either working for Aira or working with Aira. So today, we thought we would structure our panel with 4 questions. And I will begin on my first question to the 4 of you, and 5 if Caleb would like to answer, is this time last year, the country was in a very different place. And it was different for everyone, I think. Everyone had their own version of how it was so different. But think back to that point in time, and how were you feeling then, and what was your kind of outlook on the world at that point? I think I'll start with Stephanie.
This time last year, I recall feeling, I think, confused, optimistic, a little afraid. It was a mixture of emotions because this was not yet a month away from the murder of George Floyd. um, I felt that in order to maybe begin to um, make sense of it and help facilitate change, I wanted to do something. I wasn't quite sure what that something was. And it's interesting because it's about this time last year that, as an Aira explorer, and I've been one now for maybe 3 or 4 years, but I had a conversation with an Aira employee who connected me with Troy, and Troy and I had a conversation. He wanted to reach explorers. I am African American, by the way, for those who are not able to visually see me, um, or otherwise Black American of African descent, whichever you prefer. But I had a delightful conversation with Troy, and it led, I think, indirectly to this wonderful opportunity to be a co-host on Afternoon at the Museum. And so I think in a nutshell, I felt, like I said, confused as in what are we doing? Why are we still fighting a battle that um, is well over 100 years old with respect to Black Lives Mattering? Our lives have always mattered, but we're still fighting a battle that we started fighting many decades, many years ago. And fortunately, activism has enabled me to feel optimistic. So I will stop there. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. How about Dina? How about you? You are a new mom. This time last year, we had pandemic, all sorts of things. How are you feeling about that?
I think, I mean, honestly, and I'm walking around a little because I'm trying to be the chef of popsicles. But I think this time last year, just like Stephanie, I mean, I felt like I was holding my breath for what seemed like the next thing, anticipating the next tragedy or the next thing. And it just felt so heavy. And having a Black son, I just, I sometimes I would see every single one of these, every one of the pictures of George Floyd and his daughter and anyone else, just I would see pieces of him. I felt like I almost lost a year of enjoying my then 1.5-year-old to seeing him only as this future Black man, which it kind of steals away a piece of that childhood that I think a lot of Black families struggle with, is, having to give our children skills so that they can survive. And that was scary. Now I feel like I can kind of relax a little bit and enjoy him being a 2-year-old and handing out popsicles. But now I feel like because we've been having these intentional conversations, I have more of a sense of community and recognition for what the weightiness may be, but also vocalizing amongst friends the shared experiences that we may have as mothers or as daughters and sons, but also friends who may not be Black, of just knowing that, hey, there may be more going on behind the scenes than just, waking out of bed and going to work. So there's a bit of ambiguity of what's going on this past year.
That's definitely a fair look at it. Kyle, how about you? You're an agent. You see a lot of people's lives, and you were very active in your own life. So, what did it look like this time last year?
Yeah, it's a hard one to actually quantify the feeling, but for me, it was almost like a feeling of paralyzation. Like you were seeing everything unfold before you on the television. You weren't allowed to go outside and, try to do something about it. Quarantines were still, pretty high, lots of lockdowns. And in a sense, I kind of felt helpless, like you keep seeing the same thing happen over and over and over again. And it's like, why in 2021 with all of the technological advances, with all of the other like rights and different laws, why are we still fighting about this? Like, this is not something to fight over. Like, just get it done already, because this is ridiculous. So it was like paralyzed because you couldn't go out and do anything about it, frustrated because it's happening and happening and happening. And it's like, that's how I felt. Like, what, hands up in the air, like, what are we doing with this world? Like, this is our America. Everyone here is a part of the winning combination of us, like, everybody matters. Doesn't matter if you're Black, Asian, white, LGBTQ. Like, me being a part of the LGBTQ community, I have been persecuted against to my face, but I am still a white male. Somebody has to actually have to ask me or see me with my partner before I would experience prejudice. Whereas someone who is a Black American, they don't get that. It's just automatically sometimes from some of these people out there. And thinking about that for myself kind of went through a really deep place, because I've felt it very, like, once in my life, yes. And I know there is some other stigmas around that, but going and putting myself in their shoes of just, great, if I walk out the door, no matter what I do, somebody could have an adverse opinion of me just for being me. And I tried to put myself in, different scenarios. Like, if I'm driving to the grocery store and I see a policeman drive by, if I was Black, I would be holding my breath. And that is not something I want to happen to anybody that lives in this country. Like, we need to reform things to have truly, like, police should be there to protect and serve. Like, I want to be able to wave to them as they drive past, being like, hi, hopefully you're having a good day. Not, oh, hold my breath, I hope something doesn't get overlooked or get taken out of hand, and another senseless statistic gets added. Because these are people's lives. They're mothers, daughters, brothers, sisters, cousins, business owners, every part of normal society. And it was very hard to, like, really digest for me. Just kind of coming from a place of, experiencing it a little bit, but still nowhere to the degree that other Americans are experiencing prejudice. So it was kind of a hard pill to swallow. But I will say that, being an agent and working with a lot of explorers definitely did help. It definitely brought the light at the horizon, or the light at the end of the tunnel, if you will, of all the cool things that people are doing in their lives despite that. Just pushing forward, seeing all that activism, seeing the collective conscious of America shift, definitely provided me some hope that the future is going to be brighter. And yes, it's going to be hard work to get there, but that's what it is. Anytime there's a big change, you got to work. Things are going to get messy, but they always get messy before they get clean. And that's my view of it. Like, whenever I clean my house, everything comes out. It's everywhere. It's even more disarray, but it's going to look better at the end. So that's kind of where I
I
view
like
where
that. I like that.
I love it.
I do
I
too.
love it.
I
That's
like that, Kyle.
great.
Thank you.
Now, Ryan, you're a young guy. You at that time had a fiance. Your life was like, we were rolling into convention and we were busy. And how did this all take you? Because we were like in the midst of quarantine and all that on one hand, and on the other hand, you know, job is just going crazy. So how did this all land with you?
Well, I think, it all started for me. I mean, we all know it. Like, it all started for me back when COVID hit. I think, like, I was I was in San Francisco, getting guide dog, and it started there because when they shut everything down and they sent everybody home early, I was already like spiraling downhill. Like, I had paired with this dog for over 10 days, and then got sent home. And I remember going home, and everything was out of whack. I mean, you go to the store, there was nothing there. You go to all these places, there was nothing there. And then going into watching TV, which is what anybody could have done at this point in time, because you couldn't go out. Everything was so brand new, and we see all the things that started to happen, all the riots that went down, all the things that went down. I think it's unbelievable to me. we went from it just watching everything play out was absolutely insane. I don't know how many people know, but we had a huge local thing that happened here that hit closer to home than most expect. We had a guy who was in one of the riots here, and he had got into the police station afterward, and the police did something to him, and he no longer lived. And there was a lot of police brutality and riots all throughout the city for it. And I think it really. I have a lot of friends who are in the are in just a lot of these situations, and when you talk to different people and you hear their stories, and then yeah, I got to call it out. Like, we did afternoon at the museum, and we did some of those really heart-touching museums where you'd get everybody's personal experiences, you'd get everybody's thoughts. Like, I think, like, a lot of the times it was unbelievable, some of the stories and some of the things you'd hear. And I just can't believe that back in the day of MLK to today, we're still going through the same thing. It's just, you want to believe that we've moved forward, and you want to believe that we've gotten somewhere, but yet I feel like we're still fighting that same battle today. I think that we're more collected now, and we all understand, and have more thoughts on what we can do. I just think that there's a lot more. There's a lot more going on. Back then it was race, right? Now it's disability, race, everything else attached to it. And I think that there's so much more. I remember I've experienced it in disability. Going out, it's people just asking questions to you. It's the small things, right? Like, I remember going to a store and you know, uh, doing a small thing like getting stuff off a checkout counter, and somebody going, well, why isn't he looking down at the bags that he's putting in? Or just asking these silly questions that at the end of the day, you hear it every day, and you think you're used to it. But then just when you least expect it, that one question just kind of makes you feel like crap.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's that one thing where it's like, people don't realize, and I understand it's just people not knowing, right? But people don't realize that sometimes what they're saying can just punch you in the face at the worst time.
Yep.
And I think through this past year, I think it's much more amplified because we couldn't go out. We couldn't do any of those things that you normally would do. And so everybody had time to reflect and see it. And I think that going forward, all I hope is that going forward we learn from this, and we get better together, because being separated, being segregated, being anything is not going to solve anything. And I hope, just now raising a child in these next few years, like, I really hope that we all learn that things can be better. And it's just so difficult.
Yeah, and I
Thank you,
empathize with
Ryan.
the tired. Yeah, thank you so much. I think this time last year I was really tired, very tired for a number of
Mm,
reasons. And I've been an advocate for a long, long time, it feels like.
mhm,
And, at least 35 years. And right in the thick of a lot of advocacy. And I didn't know where to start. I didn't know what to do. And I thought, okay, I can't do anything. I was paralyzed, like you guys said, and just what do I do to support my neighbors and my friends? And you really nailed it, Ryan. Just the cumulative effects of little things that people say and do, you know. And I'm sure that that really gets to all of us that have some kind of marginalized thing. But when you're just thinking, okay, I'll just walk out my door and do my normal stuff, and that doesn't happen, that's a lot. That is a lot. So we've had a year to kind of reflect, and we all said this time last year that we were going to step into some hard learning. So this time I will start with Kyle. What kinds of things have you done this past year that you feel really, really helped and really kind of enriched you? Um, Hard
Yeah.
or fun, either one or all.
Well, I will say I am just terrible with history in general. Like, when did World War II happen? I don't know. I am just
Oh
bad with
no!
history of all kinds. For whatever reason, it just doesn't stick with me that well. I'm not trying to discount its importance, but what resonates more to me is the personal experience. Maybe that's the empath in me, hence being an Ira agent, really having that high level of empathy for whoever you are interacting with. So I went about and just tried to put myself in different perspectives, reading blogs, popping in on Facebook groups that are discussing current events, political activism, looking at how the media was constructing things. And it's like, no, it doesn't always have to be this way or the other way. Life is so many shades of gray. It's not black or
Yes.
white. It's the in between that what makes us. So for me, learning was more about coming from a place of understanding, and like truly putting myself, into someone's shoes in all aspects. Like how Dina was saying, like raising a child, what is the proper age to have that conversation with your child of, you are a black man in this world, you need to watch out because people suck. Like that is never a conversation that I would think that I would need to have. So like really truly trying to bring to my horizon all sorts of perspectives, whether it is that, whether it is the professor who teaches at a university who was arrested on his front porch. Like, are you kidding me? Like,
Mhm.
trying to not only like see that, but see how they react, see how the people who are generally affected are reacting. And then where can I step in to help? Is it, posting more advocacy stuff? Is it making a donation to a cause if I am not able to get out, especially during the pandemic when there's people who know the levers to pull, they just might need a little more funds in order to get that lever pulled down all the way or what have you. So that's kind of what I my perspective was. In addition, though, being an agent, we did have a lot of cool offers that I got to engage explorers with. So I did also have some of that history lesson along the way, whether I liked it or not. And yeah, it was really I would say, especially with Juneteenth, like I didn't really know about it until Donald Trump started talking about it, and that was a very polarizing thing internally for myself to figure that out that way. But one of the like the takeaways and just like learning about the holiday and the celebration, it's built on improving yourself and your community. Like what an awesome thing to rally around. Like I'm not idolizing some figure from hundreds of years ago that may have done something good, but no, it's talking about your community and what are you all going to do to bring each other together, through community service, through different actions of helping out your neighbor. And I thought that was my biggest takeaway, was this is probably one of my new favorite holidays because it is so grounded in the empathy and a bright future and coming together for your community. And I thought that was just awesome.
Awesome. And you guys are going to have a great celebration tomorrow in Cleveland, actually.
Yep,
So
Freedom
that will
Fest from
be
12
that will
p.m.
be
to
awesome.
10 p.m. I'm very excited to join.
All right. Yeah. So Dina, how about you? You are professional. You're also a mom. So have you even had time to do anything this past year?
I think it and Kyle definitely has ways with words, a way with words. So I think this past year has taught me, definitely as a mom, that I need to conserve the energy, whether it's physical energy, but also emotional energy. And a really specific example is, it because it's so easy to feel like hurt and pain and from what's been happening. I think the tendency is to want to protect, that energy. And I take my son to daycare every day, and as a blind person, I hired a driver to take me. And during the quarantine or during the pandemic, there's not a lot of people jumping up and down to drives you in their car, especially to daycare where kids have a lot of germs. So one of the individuals that got volunteered was a person that is fairly, I would say, extreme in their views, especially on social media. And that was really hard to see. And I'm like, oh no, this is not what I'm signing up my son and I for every single day in a car. But my instead of cutting off that person and saying, no, there's no opportunity, to work together, I think the work that Kyle has been doing and having conversations either on social media or with friends is kind of helping stand in the gap to where I can say, hey, let's take the risk, where I still have the power to say no. I choose not to engage with a person, but I choose also to give them an opportunity to see them as an individual. And while their views on social media may say, no, I would never want to associate with that person, they're still an individual. And while the driver and I may never agree on everything, I have had over the past, I would say 4 months, had a chance to see him as a person. He sees me as a mom. I know there's a lot of stereotypes that go into being a single mom, but I'm a single mom by choice, but not everyone has to know that. But I get to challenge his views in an intentional relational way instead of just through like a random post to a stranger on social media. So that's where it's like, in conserving my energy, emotional and physical, I can choose where I may have the most impact. And in this case, it's turning out to be true so far.
Wow. Wow. I wish I had an applause sound effect because, wow. Wow. And, that was hard to do this past year to kind of bridge that gap. And my husband and I, who have similar, but it turns out sometimes very different political views, had to have some of those conversations. Like, what? Did you just say what I heard you just say? So, Stephanie, how about
Yeah.
you?
Did I hear you right?
Yes.
Well, I just echo some of what Kyle said and some of what Dina said. The hard conversations are, of course, hard. That's not a surprise to anyone. And in all candor, I typically am not the person that wants to go out and mix it up on Facebook or Twitter with people in hard conversations. And this was prior to the onset of the pandemic. Now, with the pandemic coming, of course, you have to reset things as a user of Lyft and Uber services. You realize, or at least I should say, I realized I am going to likelihood be in a car with someone who doesn't really care to wear a mask or doesn't want to have a conversation for different reasons than myself, or wants to express to me, maybe because of who I am and the way I look, because my ethnicity comes with me. I can't hide it. Some people maybe feel emboldened to have an opinion and express it, not just have it, but express it. So um, what I did, partly because of Ira and my interest in raising my hand to help with the initiatives put forth by Troy and the company last year, I raised my hand and said, yeah, how can I help? And again, I call it a blessing to have been a part of Afternoon at the Museum from the start. And so that helped to educate me because, as Kyle mentioned, um, I, I knew about Juneteenth as a holiday as an example, but I wasn't really, as a day, but I wasn't versed in it. And I'm so happy to see the one bright spot of hope in our Congress that bipartisanship prevailed and the holiday passed. So I'm happy about that and looking forward to celebrating tomorrow. But So being a part of Afternoon at the Museum did help to educate me. I mean, we visited some very, frankly, gut-wrenching museums.
Yes.
I say gut-wrenching in terms of the things that I learned. Maybe I knew some of it and forgot, maybe some of it I never knew. But it just like peeled back a Band-Aid almost on some of these scars and wounds, you know, prejudice and racism and all of the things that we've experienced in this country. And not just, of course, those of us folk of color, but people who are our allies catch a lot of heat for being our allies. And so, what I did try to do, though, was avail myself of podcasts and different blogs, and didn't do as much blog reading, perhaps, as others maybe, but I did read and try to keep up with news, had to kind of meter and monitor that, um, just to keep an emotional balance, because if I can't function, I'm too exhausted and overwhelmed by it all, that I'm no good to anyone. So had to monitor that, but yeah, trying to stay
Mm-hmm.
on top of news, trying to also, again, just take what I've learned from the museum show experiences. And I want to say, to all of the people out there, and perhaps agents aren't listening because they're working, but for all the agents that participated, thank you so much. I remember Wendell, Caleb, and Sierra, and forgive me for forgetting everybody else, but y'all know who you are if you have a chance to hear
Mm-hmm.
this podcast. Um, from the hard stuff to the fun stuff. It like the zoo exhibits and the shed aquariums and uh the Kwanzaa celebration, Dr. Hume's. I mean,
Yeah,
Oh my
yeah,
gosh.
it's so
absolutely.
That was
Mm-hmm.
amazing,
so cool.
amazing. And just all the shows in between. So I say all that to say that um I think understanding other people through listening, being in the back seat of these lift cars. In some cars, drivers had the petitions up, and other cars not so much.
Mm-hmm.
Um, as I understand it, everyone was wearing a mask, because they were on camera and Lyft said you had to, so you did.
Yeah.
Whether or not they wanted to, well, they did. And we had these interesting conversations at times, and I found myself seeking to find because I figure it's a 15 to 20-minute ride in many cases, seeking to find what's the common ground for us. What is it? I mean, putting our political differences aside and how we might even feel about the murder of George Floyd. Let's just set those things aside and see what common things we have in common. And when I approach the questions like that, quite often we had lots of things in common. Sometimes we enjoyed the same sport. Sometimes we felt, similar views on education is important for everybody's child, whether your child is in my neighborhood or in Janine's neighborhood. I mean, we found common ground in these conversations, and that
Mm-hmm.
was intentional on my part, because it's very easy to just get in the car and you hear the particular music playing and you think, okay, maybe it'll be a long ride.
How's this gonna go?
How's
Yeah,
it gonna go?
yeah.
So it's like, so what is your favorite baseball team?
Yeah.
And then you realize,
Yeah.
we are people, and sadly, what it has happened is, I mean, I understand politically we're all going to select which positions we take on which issues and all that, but sadly, we've gotten to a place where we can't hear each other, and I wanted to make it intentional that I listened to the driver and the driver listened to me, and I had a lot of good conversations with people, I'm sure, who had political differences different from mine, but I celebrated the things we had in common.
Yeah.
Awesome. So Ryan, how about you?
Well, I have to agree with Stephanie. Although you had a lot more tact with that one than I did at first. I remember, um, I remember in the beginning, after the whole thing with George Floyd on TV, going into an Uber, and Shay and I had gotten in this car and we started driving down the street, and this driver suddenly just started laying out all of his political stuff just out in the open, just in the Uber. And I remember being like, okay, it's not that I don't want to talk about it, but I find that it's a lot more difficult to do it, especially in an Uber car with somebody that you have to, get to the right place with.
Right.
I think after that, it's not that you try to avoid those topics, but really you try to get, the less controversial parts of it. And I think that, going through that time, we got so used to not saying anything, and watching. Like, I remember, just really, I think the way I handled a lot of this was a lot of research. I think I spent more time watching documentaries and watching, really just history stuff than I can think of that I've done in the past year, and really getting to understand more about what happened. I think I'm a little bit of a nerd in that way. Like, somebody tells me something happened, and I want to know more about it. Like, I want to know what started the whole thing on both sides, not just one, but like what did happen in this argument or fight. How did this go? Especially when it came to, like, MLK, things like that. Like, I was always that kid growing up, and so this past year it was, a lot more just of understanding. I think the other big thing for me was listening to people, in both a personal and professional way. And one thing I'll say about Ira, especially being here, and everybody here can agree with me, we work in such a diverse company of people. I mean, there is all sorts of people that work at Aira, and it's a very, very welcoming, open place. But I think in that regard, one thing is, the ability that, a lot of people like to listen, like to understand, and like to be better at who they are. And I think, really just getting to listen to people's different stories, different viewpoints, different things like that. And I think that helps you grow just as much as, learning about history or being a part of it. Because, you really get to hear from other people and the way they think. Afternoon at the museum was a big one too, and I think we've said that a lot. Like, I think some of the deep ones for me were, the Veterans Memorial Museum. That was a really huge museum. Getting to see some of the baseball museums, when you saw some of the history in sports, I think was, how we had different teams and certain people couldn't play and they had to fight, and I think, like, you see it everywhere. Authors hiding their identities because they don't want you to know that they're female, when they were posting books back in the day, things like that. And I think, that all just comes down to one thing, and it's, we all have our different views, but I think we all have the ability to be cohesive. And I think if people really took the time and saw that, and really looked at the world in that way, the world would be a different place. We're all here to do the same thing. We all might be different people. But I think, there really is a way, just like, I think, I had a friend tell me the other day, and I have to wonder if he was right when he said, back in the day, when people used to go outside and just talk to their neighbors outside, and go outside their house, it didn't matter who you were, because that was the thing to do back then. You went outside, you talked to your neighbors, you got to know the people around you. As time went on, people started becoming more into themselves because they had their computers, they had a way to be anonymous, they had a way to be more Facebook. And I think that changed people a lot. And you have to wonder where we're going in that regard, especially because I think, when people were able to be more open with each other out in person, you saw a lot more of these, sharing. You saw a lot more just upfront things. And it's just an interesting thought to go around. But it's been an interesting year, to say the least.
It certainly has, and I can tell you, and not it's just a little soft spot for that little thing called Afternoon at the Museum, just a little bit. But when we started that show, which the episodes are available on our YouTube channel, so please avail yourselves of them because there's some great ones. And I don't know, Stephanie, you remember the first one we did, the African American Museum of Iowa. And we all thought,
Yes.
Mhm.
Iowa?
Yes.
What the heck are we going to learn in
Iowa.
Iowa? But man, and it sticks with me today when I put it in our special for tomorrow. They had a segment
Yeah.
about the Middle
Yeah.
Passage. Oh, and I I thought I had always had this image of, oh, they're ships and they have benches and maybe they have bunks on the wall. No, no, that was not it at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
These people were packed like Amazon boxes. I mean, it
Wow.
was
Exactly.
just,
Yeah.
Exactly.
Wow. This
Well,
is
I'll
like a
say it.
treasure trove of
oh,
like
Well,
just
I'll
absolutely.
say it, guys. Like,
knowledge.
and we'll just tell the world really quickly. Like,
Oh,
guys, we didn't plan. I mean, I,
no.
people will think, oh, guys, they set this thing up. They knew who was coming to the show. They know what
Oh
they're
my
going to look at.
gosh.
We didn't look. We didn't plan any of the afternoon at the museum shows. I think the most planning that might have happened in the afternoon at the museum shows is the agent that we were going to have that day probably went on the website
Yep.
and looked to make sure they had
Yep. And
content to
just to
look
see if
at.
we had enough content, but
But we never talked ahead of time. We
no.
never said anything. And I think that was my favorite thing about Afternoon at the
Yeah.
Museum was that it was just so, it
We
was
just
raw
kind
and
of went for
inspiring.
it,
And
dove in, and
Yes.
boy, we did not
and we
expect.
dove in.
Yeah.
I remember
And
I left that
so,
show crying a couple times.
oh, so did I. And the first time my husband watched the show about the Iowa Museum, he was crying. He came into
Yep.
me and he was just, like, oh, I so needed
I'm not
to
ashamed
hear
to say
that.
it. Like, I was crying. Like,
Oh, there were a
I've
bunch of
cried.
these that I.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a
Well,
tough one.
you guys, you say that, and I'm reminded of the Tuskegee Airmen show that
Yep.
Mhm.
we
Yep.
did, where one of them was court-martialed.
Yeah.
Yep.
He had
Yeah.
fought and they'd done all the things they did and all the accolades. He comes home, sir, you go that way, you go that way.
Mm-hmm.
And he
Yep.
disagreed, and all of a sudden you're court-martialed.
Yeah.
I mean, we
There's
had
your
that. I mean,
career.
well, we
Done.
had that first museum where we did, where we had Paul Mims, and
Mhm.
Yeah, that was
he started
Tuskegee.
and he started going in on his personal on what happened to him.
Yep.
And when it and I think that's what really was great about Afternoon Museum was we looked at history, but then we were able to bring it back and go, well, this actually happened to me, and that's where you start feeling it, and that's where these things just go, oh
Yeah.
goodness.
And to know people that this happened to, and
Mhm.
Yes.
I
Yes.
did not get how deeply something like that can embed itself in your culture. And then I started reading and kind of, friends pointed out articles, and a dear friend of mine is a geneticist, and she sent me an article about how genetically we hold on to trauma through generations and generations. And it's like, well,
Yes. Yes.
wow, that was just, and I mean, my people are, we married into Native American tribes, a couple of them, so I've got that experience, but it's nothing like the description of that ship. And I don't know, and I'm not gonna cry now, but it was just so enlightening for me to just shut up and listen, because it's not my lane.
Mhm.
I felt
And
that way about the
yeah.
Memorial Day show. As I
Mhm.
listened to the Memorial Day show, as
Mhm.
much as I would have loved to have been a part of it, I realized that the guests that day it was destiny
Oh my
to have
gosh.
Well,
you guys
then
on that day
Yeah.
because of the description of the ceremony,
Mhm.
of the empty table
Yeah.
was just
Yeah.
riveting.
And Paul has done that, set that
Yes,
particular
and he
thing
knows
up,
that.
and it
Yes.
just, yeah. So,
And I have my father's flag, my dad
oh, I've got my
Air Force.
grandfather's.
my
Yeah.
Yeah,
grandpa's, yeah.
and the service they do for you at internment and the flag being handed to you.
Oh.
There's no, I don't even,
Mhm.
it's handed, it's folded, it's put in the holder and hand it to you. And we now have it a case built for it. One of our dear friends built a case for it, so it's
Oh,
prominence in our living
nice.
room. But that just that day having it handed to me, and then fast forward to the Memorial Day show when they talked about the service and the ceremony,
Yeah.
and then when you contrast that with our visit to Mars and how
Yeah.
all of this is in the big scheme of things, there's all of this has a place of importance and what we're doing space, and the fact that so many people don't know about a lot of things. And I think Afternoon at the Museum gave people an opportunity to learn all kinds of history, whether it was our civil rights, human rights history, or the history of space exploration with you, Dina, and your colleagues. Um, uh, just, just again, I go back to the National Zoo and the day we
Yeah.
son
Oh
and
my gosh,
visiting the
yes.
San Diego Zoo and just having fun. I think it points out that we, I know people have said this, I've heard it said in politics circles, I've heard it said in other circles. We have, there's more that unites us than divides us. We've got more in common than different. It's so easy to forget.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's easy
Yeah.
to forget it when you see the of hatred and vitriol being flung around in the world, in our country,
Yes.
say the
Yes.
world.
And
Absolutely.
it's a matter of almost like slowing down,
Mhm.
and kind of taking that time to either reflect or just simply listen. I mean,
Yeah.
and
Absolutely.
I think through the afternoon in a museum sessions, I mean, you get a chance to kind of sit back and listen, but in a way, observe, if that makes sense. And I think there's a lot of lessons from this past year of we were observers to things either that we felt like we didn't have a lot of control, and maybe going into 2021 we're halfway through, maybe we do have some control in stepping out of that observer role into more of an active role. So
Hope so. And
it's just a matter
actually,
of what we do with
Oh
that.
yeah, that makes great
that is a
sense.
great segue because I looked at my last two questions and I think I'm going to combine them because they dovetail onto each other
Hmm.
actually. So, the future, we got a little guy on here and Ryan's about to have a little girl and we, the future is out there. So, what are you thinking about, Dina? I mean, you have written some beautiful things in your Facebook page and I'm sure elsewhere about being a parent, especially of a young black man growing up. So what's in the future?
Oh my goodness! I mean,
It's not a loaded
I
question at all.
No
I
wrong
wish,
answer, Dina.
sometimes I
Do
wish
we
I
have
had a
a
crystal
extra
ball.
hour?
Yeah.
Yeah, we need
Yeah.
another
I
hour.
mean, I mean, I'm happy to go over.
We'll definitely go over here. So
But
yeah.
I mean, it's. I try not. I'm learning that I cannot parent him and guide him out of fear, because I think that's where the power of hatred and animosity and everything takes away kind of that joy of being a young black boy. And I'm trying to be intentional in making sure that he has diverse classrooms, that he has diverse experiences, but just trying not to parent him out of fear, and just, have more of those moments of just, he is Caleb. He has an open slate right now. And I take it from one day at a time, 1 year at a time, and yes, those hard conversations are going to come, but I gotta, just hang on.
I love hearing about your adventures. I just think it's
Absolutely. Yeah.
totally awesome. So Ryan, dad to be, what do you think going
I
forward?
can stop sneezing. I'll answer the question. I think I've thought a lot about this because I think, like, I mean, it's hard for me, and I think, it matters a lot, not knowing. There's a lot you don't know, especially 6 months in, about about your child. You don't know if they're going to be blind. You don't know if they're going to be whatever until, about 6 months in. And so really a lot of it is thinking. And I like what you said, like everything's a clean slate. You don't, nothing is to be expected. I mean, we don't know where things are going to be in 4 or 5 years, especially when school starts. But I think
Yeah,
the
we certainly
important
learned that this past year.
right.
That was not on anybody's bingo
Yes.
card. Like,
But I mean, the comment I was going to make before we moved on was, I mean, we saw a big change, especially even in the past year. Just looking at this presidential election. I think I think somebody said it, maybe it was Eugenie, this is the first ever inauguration team that had a fully inclusive website.
Yes.
And
Huge.
that was huge. And it was the first inauguration that had a fully diverse and accessible day. Ira did our thing, but if you didn't want to watch ours, they did their own. And it was something that and it's something small, but this year, the Special Olympics is going to be on TV. And
cool.
It's just things like that you see that things are different now than they are. And I have to realize that, and I have to think about that as a child grows older, is things aren't what we see. And I think what you find a lot of times, especially with parents and especially with people, mine were certainly like this, it's hard to move on. And so you act really like how things were when you grew up, and you can't look at it that way. And I think it's really hard to do that, and I think nowadays, we try to do it more than we try to, look forward and instead of back where we were, or staying stuck in time. But I think, it's really easy to fall into that groove. And I think just going forward, it's important to realize that your kids really are going to define what they do for themselves. And really, it's you being there to support them. That's what matters. Having those hard conversations when they come up, but really not making it a part of their lives until it has to be. Because I think, for me anyway, if somebody were to have told me when I went to school when I was younger that I was going to have to spend half my time self-advocating for every damn thing that I wanted to have, I don't know if I would have wanted to show up for school. It's those skills that I had to gain by sitting in those meetings and really learning that, hey, I have to really understand that this is what I need. If somebody would have done that for me, or if somebody would have told me ahead of time this was going to happen, I don't know if I would have looked at it the way I did. And so really it's how you grow up, but it's how the influences are around you, that I think are huge enough, for me. And I think that if we have the right influences going forward, not even just with children, right, but with each other, if we have the right influences going forward, if we respect our friends and neighbors, if we do, I mean, it sounds so silly, but if we treat others the way they want to be treated, you're going to grow and have a better world than if you go and you thrust your views on somebody else, or you push and make things the way that you feel they need to be, which is TV. So avoid TV. No, but I think that's just it, right? Just be with each other, not against each other. And that's moving forward, and that's the future. And that's, I don't really know how to say anything else aside from that. Just
civility and respect.
Yeah.
Civility. I mean,
Yeah.
we've fallen far, far away from civility.
Yep.
Because
We
you
have.
can agree to disagree. You can have very impassioned debate about things. And those who are who enjoy debate will tell you, you can really get engaged, and that's wonderful.
We saw that this year.
And in true debate, the end goal is, well, of course, if you're in debate competition, of course, the goal is to win, but the other goal is to inform. And so in a debate where argument and rebuttal are taken seriously and it's done the way debate is structured to be done, you can come away learning, even when you say, I still don't agree with you, but I've learned something. So that's where I think civility would help in our society. That we can just say, okay, we're going to agree to disagree, or I respect your position, I just don't agree with it. And have people say, well, okay, but we've lost that.
Yeah, we're digging into trenches too much. Like we're not giving up, and like that's part of it. It's compromise. That's how you get by in life. You give and you take. You give and you take. You speak and you listen. That's what it is. I'm excited for that. For me, I think this past year really allowed myself to get more in tune with myself, to know what I am more passionate about, where I can fit into the puzzle, to help, to listen, because beforehand I was great. Just let's learn, let's listen, let's talk, let's convince everybody in the world to get on board with you. And no, that's not quite how it is. So yeah, I'm excited for the future of us. We are, I feel like, kind of getting away from that social media animosity. And granted, to the social media and big tech companies, I have seen more accessibility commercials on TV this past 2 months. And I am like, yes, it's like out there, it's in the mainstream now. Like everyone's getting brought up to speed.
I mean, when the first successful video game came out, that's where people were just like, whoa,
I know,
and
it's like
I'll say
disability
thank
is
you.
cool now.
and I feel like you just have to say it, like, thank you, Clubhouse. Like,
yes,
I think Clubhouse changed the world for everybody.
Yes, and it changed it in a couple ways. First of all, people came to them and said, accessibility, hello, and they made it happen like that. It was like, oh, we're sorry. Oh, well, let's just make it happen.
I think it's bigger than that, right? Like, I opened Clubhouse right before this because, granted, I was checking to see if Janine had scheduled this on Clubhouse, but
we will replay this on Clubhouse, trust me.
I opened it up and I saw not one, not two, but I saw 5 Juneteenth conversations with several hundred people.
Nice.
And you wouldn't see that on Facebook.
No.
Right.
I mean, you wouldn't see that on Twitter. I mean, if you saw it on Twitter, it'd be people, hate messaging, right? But you on Clubhouse, it's different. People are more open with each other, I think.
Well, that's because I think there's no video. And you're not
there you
doing
go.
that whole video dance. And luckily, there are some apps now that will allow people who have hearing difficulties to participate. They can actually participate now, which is great. You've got Club Deck, and I think there are probably a couple other apps. And I'm sure that the folks on Clubhouse are not intentionally, excluding people with hearing loss. They just want to do it in such a way that it maintains the integrity of the medium.
Yeah.
But I think us constantly, if we learned one thing this year about Zoom communication, we're all sick of Zoom. We love you, Zoom. We could not do what we are doing without you. But I think we're all tired of looking at little squares and ourselves.
You saw Zoom did it.
Square.
I mean, you saw Zoom did it, though. I mean, they enabled live transcription.
Sure. Yeah, and it's not perfect, but we're glad we have it. And
it is here to stay.
It's here, yep. I've seen it on
remember
just about every app now that does this kind of thing, has live transcription. For good or bad, it is there. And so, I want to thank all of you. This has been incredible. I was joking the other day in our customer care meeting that I've cried more since I've been at this company, but it's been a good cry, though. It's been a healthy kind of, release emotion cry. And I just
you didn't go to work thinking you were going to cry, but
I know. People who know me
today.
Yes, people who know me know that I do not cry. I am not a crier. To my detriment, I am not a crier.
That might be changing now, Janine. It might be
my
changing.
gosh. I mean, things since I've come to Aira have really touched me. And it's kind of like in the guide dog world, too. You see people taking back their independence and taking back
Yes.
or discovering that they have independence in the first place. And that's what I'm hoping comes out of Juneteenth to come, is people get to take back their independence or discover that they have it and that they are in control and that, they don't have to accept all of this crap that
No.
is around, and, they can make their neighborhoods, their communities better places. I
Janine,
would
can
say,
I?
Amen to that.
yeah.
Yes. Can I just throw something in real quick? Just really
Absolutely.
quick.
Absolutely.
I
Because I'm going to
think.
do final thoughts. Let's
Oh,
start with
okay.
you.
Oh,
Oh,
okay. Final thoughts then. What I love and appreciate, if we look for the positives that have come away from the pandemic, is oral histories, sharing oral histories,
Oh, yes.
the various venues for sharing them, people doing it through spoken word, poetry, but oral, my personal emphasis being oral, because for me, hearing, and I think about the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum and that beautiful podcast, Black
Oh,
Diamonds.
I am hooked
It's
on that
called,
podcast. I
yeah.
love that
oh
podcast
man,
now. Oh, my
I love
gosh.
it. I love it. And the learning of the history, just again through them and sharing the history of African Americans, Black Americans of African descent, whichever you prefer, uh, through the baseball stories of these men and women, because there was a woman who
Yeah.
co-owned a team until her
Yep.
husband passed away, and then she was the owner,
Mm-hmm.
Newark Eagles. And the point I'm saying all that to say is, I think when we know our history, and I'm not just going to say this for Black Americans, but when we know our history, we can take a different approach to what we do in our future. So we can learn from our history. These men in the game, they really went through a lot of struggle, just to put it mild. They struggled a lot. But when you listen to the program and go to the museum and read the statistics and go through the exhibits, you realize what great accomplishments they had. And so from that, I take, so we are a resilient people. We can do anything we set our mind to do.
Oh, yeah.
So in the face of opposition, in the face of hate and um, all that comes with that sort of hate. And yes, we're still trying 420 something years, since 1619, or 402 years since 1619. All of that, though, I'm still encouraged because we have history, we have hope, we have allies, we have a lot more positives than negatives. And so that's my final thought.
That's
And I want to
beautiful.
thank you, Janine, again, and Ira and Troy and Ryan, all of you guys for being so welcoming to me as a co-host of Afternoon at the Museum. This has just been one of the best
It's
experiences
not
I.
over, you know.
Oh,
Well,
it's
No,
not.
we're
but I'm
not
gonna
saying
say, no,
goodbye.
I'm just gonna say thank you for this first season because
You got
you
it.
know
First
because
season.
it's just
Just
been
wait till
really
season
cool.
two.
No, I just want to say thank
Oh,
you now.
yeah.
I mean, I'm not gonna wait until season 2 to say
Yeah.
thank you now for
Well,
the opportunity.
we appreciate you stepping up, Stephanie, and thank you so much. So, Ryan, you got a couple final words for us?
Gosh, you had to make me go second.
Uh-huh.
Gosh, where do I start? I think looking back on this past year, I think we've all come a long ways. I think that in hindsight, I think the pandemic. I'm not saying it was a good thing because it definitely wasn't, but I think it helped us to really learn more about who we were, and really opened up our eyes to issues that were going on. People had more time to watch things unfold. People had more time to see things, and I think that going forward, I hope that we'll we'll look more at our friends, we'll look more at our neighbors, and really be go back to that interest and wanting to help each other and wanting to be there for each other instead of be there for against each other. You know, I I see so many ways where we've improved. I've improved as a person, you know, especially in this past year. And I think that, you know, when we come back here in a year and we do this, you know, if we do this future reflections again, you know, we'll look back at this and say, you know, we came out of a pandemic, we came out of all this, but I think more or less it goes down to, you know, we we sit here, we all talk about this, and we, you know, we look at it, but the world is really, and I think, and you tell your kids this too, like the world is a great place. I think it's really how, you know, we look at each other and how we see each other going forward is really what's going to make the difference.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, I think um, we we had a big thing happen this year, and that's the recognizing of Juneteenth. You know, and I think like every federal company, every company that I know, including ours, is now recognizing this as a federal day, and I think that's important. You know, the first step to fixing a problem or the first step to even solving anything is to recognize it, and I think that, you know, we're there now, and I hope that, you know, in the next couple of years we become more united, and we become more more together. And you know, I want to thank Ira, especially for letting us have this conversation. Troy, like, you know, not many companies will let. I think this is a really big topic that we've done today. You know, just looking at it, like we've done a lot of museums, we've done a lot of things, but to reflect on the past year, and to really come together as employees, as friends, as, you know, whatever that may be, and say, hey, this is what happened this year. It's huge. And so, you know, just a thanks to Ira, a thanks to everybody who's joined us today, who's sat through this, who's gone through our museums, who've been a part of
thank
our
you all
live
for
things. Like,
hanging with us.
it's been you're appreciated, all of you, all of our explorers especially, and thanks for joining this ride with us. You know, and I look forward to season 2.
Oh man, you guys are getting harder and harder to top here. And now, from one of the people who gets to see a lot of those explorers on a daily basis, Kyle, what's on your mind?
Final thoughts, final thoughts. Let's see. I mean, the one thing I've learned that I think everyone has to a degree over the course of the pandemic specifically is to not judge yourself so harshly. Yes, some people may have gotten into their peak physical shape during the pandemic, and yeah, other people may have not left the couch much, and that is okay.
Exactly.
It was just something to me that, like, truly, you know, being kind to yourself, you've always heard that, be kind to others, but to me it's more like it's having grace. Like, be graceful with yourself. You're a human. Humans are messy. You're going to make mistakes. As long as you get back up and do better the next time, I think that's what our experience is about. And I think all of us, you know, sitting back and getting to observe everything over this past year is going to allow us to kind of step out of that with a lot more vigor and, you know, come out there, find those common denominators with other people, find those common interests, because it's probably way more of those than differences, and work together to actually create some action. And that's what I'm excited about. Just be graceful with everybody. We all have been through a lot, you know, and just take it one day at a time and plan for big things, but work in small steps to get there.
All right. And last but not least, Dina and Caleb, what's the future looking like?
All right. Well,
More popsicles.
yeah, I think definitely. Let's see. Let's see. All right. So I think I'm unmuted.
Yep.
So if anybody's been watching my video, as I've, you know, been on here, I think Caleb has been listening to what you were saying, because we are actually at a baseball field, and what so it's almost like the best
Oh,
backdrop to what we're talking about here. Not only for some of the great finds that you've had through the afternoon at the museum, but just kind of observing his behavior in that we were kind of watching for a few minutes a group of older, very diverse group of baseball players, throwing balls and catching them. And he's just watching and observing.
all
And then
right.
now, as I'm trying to keep him, going, he's actually throwing the ball just like them. So it's kind of
Ah,
like this analogy for just hopefully we have other companies and different viewers that find this conversation that will kind of model after Ira and take the chance and have the conversations, and really take stock of where we've been and where we have to go. I know that we have this great holiday. We had the day off, and a lot of us found ourselves with a day off, but let's take that next step and seeing where we can go with it. We know we have a lot of work to do, but there's a lot of strength that is being modeled out there for us. And so, and that's what I hope for Caleb, as he's kind of watching these older guys, play baseball. I wonder what's going in his mind of, hey, I could do that too. And I think that's what, I want for myself, and
oh,
I want for a lot of, our explorers out there.
okay, awesome. I love the
Do you have any
visual.
final words? Can you say
Yeah.
bye-bye?
Bye-bye.
Aw.
Bye, Caleb.
Bye, Caleb.
Oh my gosh. I can't top that. I can't. And now I am gonna cry, darn it. Um, so I want everybody to know that tomorrow, which is actually Juneteenth, we will have a special that will be airing on our YouTube channel and on various other places, right, Ryan? And it's kind of our celebration of Juneteenth. We have some of our museum clips. We have some thoughts from agents, which are just beautiful. And then we're going to bring you the signing ceremony. Thank you so much, Kyle, for doing Agent Magic with it, dusting it with Agent Magic. And so we will have that for you tomorrow. That will air at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, 10 a.m. Pacific Time. So, time enough for you to have fun on the day and take advantage of our Juneteenth offer, which will be in the Aira app. And that will be you can tap on apply a free access offer and then promotions, and you will see the Juneteenth offer in there. All right. Well, thank you all. Thank you so much. My co-pilot here, Ryan
I will
Bishop.
mention that offer will go into the app tonight at 12 Pacific time. So
Yes.
um
12
the
a.m. Pacific
12 a.m.
time.
Pacific time. In
Yes.
case it's like 12 o'clock in your time zone. He's not there. It's 12 Pacific
Yes,
time.
it is 12
So
Pacific, which
3
is 3
Eastern.
Eastern.
Yeah.
And if you're up at 3 Eastern doing Juneteenth stuff, good on you, okay? That's not going to be me, but
Well,
good for
I
you.
mentioned that because our people in the UK and
Oh,
all
that's
that,
right.
like,
Yes, because this is an international offer, you guys. So if you all want to know what we're going on and on about in the U.S. about Juneteenth, please take advantage. Because
and please don't ask me to convert that to UK time. I suck at
I think it's around 8
That is
o'clock
the
in the morning.
one thing that
Yep.
I didn't get good during COVID was the time zone aspect of life. But
That's why
you
they
know,
make the Amazon speakers, the A lady, because you can ask her
Mhm.
anything.
yeah.
Mhm.
Janine, you are spot
Awesome.
on. 8 a.m. Friday.
8 a.m.
Well,
Yeah.
Saturday, but
8
yeah.
a.m. Yeah, so yeah,
Saturday.
it would be.
Janine, you got good during that.
Well, I don't know. It's believe me, it's sheer luck. And thank you so much, Kyle. You have been one of the leaders of our initiative to get more people in minority communities interested in Aira, excited about Aira, helping our staff with anything that they need in terms of equality and inclusion and all that good stuff. Thank you so much. And thank you for the great description of the bill signing.
Anytime. Glad to be a part of this awesome effort. And hey, surrounded by wonderful people, you got to live up to all the awesomeness around you.
Yeah. I was so excited because I didn't realize that my representative, Joyce Beatty, was up there on the stage and got one of the pens. That was pretty cool. So I was like, oh my gosh, I know her. And a big thank you to Dina and Caleb for coming to us from the baseball fields. Yeah, thank you so
Yay.
much.
Thank you
And
for having us.
oh,
And
absolutely.
we will have you anytime you want to join us.
I was going to say, you guys just wait. 15 years from now, we'll have Caleb and your little girl, and they'll be doing the show.
Yes, yes.
That'll be so
And we'll
good.
be sitting in the audience because that's how it works.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Oh my
Yes.
gosh. And thank you so much to my host of Afternoon at the Museum and fellow airplane enthusiasts. Thank you
Yes.
so much, Stephanie. Woo! And we still have to get to a couple of the airplane museums that are
There's
out
so many
there.
more
There are
museums to
so
go.
many on our
And
list.
I want to plug in one more agent, Julia. She, I think, was the
Yes.
agent that had the most time in with us. And thank you, Julia. Katarina, I think it is, if I got the name
You will
right.
hear Sierra.
Katarina, Sierra,
Yep.
Wendell,
Wendell,
Yep.
Caleb Thomas.
Caleb,
Oh,
yeah,
my friend
Caleb,
Christopher Thornton.
Christopher.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yep.
all of
And
you guys. You're just
thank you all so much for being with us today. We appreciate you listening to us. And hey, any questions or comments, you know where to find us right